AITA for refusing to let my sister stay in my house after she caused major issues in my last family gathering. I, 34F, have always been close with my younger sister, Maddie, 30F, but over the last few years, our relationship has been strained due to what I see as her lack of boundaries and constant need for attention. We grew up in a household where I was often responsible for taking care of her and managing a lot of family obligations. So I think I naturally developed a low tolerance for chaos that isn't my responsibility. The issue came to a head recently. My husband, James, 36M, and I bought a house about 2 years ago in a quiet neighborhood, and we finally felt settled enough to host a family gathering. My parents, Maddie, her husband Chris, 32M, and their 2 kids were all invited, along with a few of James' siblings. The plan was simple: a casual Sunday barbecue with games for the kids and enough space for everyone to be comfortable. Everything was fine until Maddie arrived. From the moment she walked in, she started rearranging furniture, moving plates, and helping in ways that weren't helpful at all. I politely asked her to leave the kitchen alone because I had things under control, but she kept finding excuses to intervene. Then, while the kids were playing outside, she started loudly criticizing how James and I were parenting our youngest child, who is 2. She claimed I was too strict and that James was overreacting when he asked her not to let the toddler climb on a railing. It felt intrusive, and I told her calmly that I didn't appreciate her comments. The tension escalated during lunch. Maddie had brought a dessert she was particularly proud of, but she insisted that I serve it first, then made a scene when I didn't present it exactly the way she wanted. She also started loudly complaining about how cramped my living room was, even though there was plenty of seating. At one point, she grabbed James' drink, claiming she was just helping, and when he told her to put it down, she snapped at him in front of everyone. The rest of the family tried to mediate, but it ended with her storming out and me in tears because I felt humiliated and exhausted from trying to keep the peace. After the gathering, Maddie called me several times, insisting she had been misunderstood and that I was overreacting. I explained that I didn't mind constructive feedback or help, but the way she had behaved was disrespectful and crossed multiple boundaries. Maddie responded by saying I was being overly sensitive and controlling. Fast forward a few weeks, Maddie called again, asking if she and her family could stay at our house for a long weekend because their home was undergoing renovations. I hesitated because of what had happened at the barbecue, but she insisted it would be fine and that she just wanted to spend time together. I told her that I needed to think about it and discuss it with James. After talking it over, we decided it would not be a good idea. We both felt that she didn't respect our space or our rules, and we were concerned that inviting her for an extended stay could lead to another stressful situation. When I told Maddie our decision, she exploded. She accused me of being selfish, ungrateful, and a bad sister. She also sent several texts to my parents complaining about me, claiming that I was picking fights and trying to control everyone. My parents were disappointed, but didn't outright take sides, although they did say they were sad we weren't going to spend more time together. Maddie has since been cold and distant, refusing to speak to me except through passive-aggressive messages. I feel conflicted because, on one hand, I want to maintain a relationship with my sister and her kids, but on the other hand, I feel that my home and my family's peace should come first. James supports my decision entirely, saying he doesn't want to deal with another chaotic visit. I considered compromising, like inviting them over for a day, instead of a weekend, but I fear that even a short visit could lead to tension. I can't help but wonder if I'm being too rigid or harsh by refusing Maddie's request. Am I the asshole for prioritizing my household's peace over my sister's desire to stay with us, even though it could damage our relationship further? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding even though it's her once-in-a-lifetime event. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one in my family. I have a steady job, a mortgage, and a schedule that I try to stick to as much as possible. My younger sister, Emily, 28F, let's just say, she's less responsible. She's had a series of unstable jobs, moves frequently, and tends to make big decisions on impulse. Despite this, I've always tried to support her when I can, financially and emotionally. Emily got engaged about a year ago to her fiancé, Mark, 30M. They've been dating for 4 years, but it hasn't been the smoothest relationship. There have been multiple breakups, and from what I've gathered, Emily tends to idealize the beginning of relationships and overlook serious red flags. I tried to voice some concerns when they first got engaged, but my opinions were dismissed as being overly cautious. A few months ago, Emily came to me with what she called an amazing opportunity. She wanted me to host their wedding at my house. Now, my house is not a mansion. It's a 2-story suburban home with a modest backyard. But apparently, it's perfect for a wedding because of the garden and the open layout. She said she wanted an intimate wedding, and she specifically mentioned that she wanted to save money on renting a venue by using my home instead. I've always prided myself on being hospitable, but the way she presented it made me feel like I was being used more than asked. I explained that while I would love to help, hosting a full wedding at my house would be logistically impossible. I have 2 cats that cannot be crated for that long. I don't have enough space for a proper guest list, and the idea of strangers traipsing through my home stressed me out. I also work full-time and cannot dedicate weeks to cleaning, decorating, and planning an event of that magnitude. Emily responded by saying, "It's our once-in-a-lifetime day. You're my sister. You have to do this for me." I tried to compromise. I offered to host the rehearsal dinner, which is much smaller and manageable, and to help with decorations or errands leading up to the wedding. I even offered to loan her some of the money I would have spent hosting if she wanted to rent a small venue. But nothing was enough. She kept insisting that family supports family and that I was being selfish. The tension escalated when she sent me a detailed plan of how she imagined the wedding unfolding in my house. She included a seating chart, catering layout, and even asked if I could get my friends involved in helping set up. She said, "You know you want to help me. Otherwise, I'll have to make do without you, and I really want my big sister there." It felt manipulative. I told her again that I could not host. I said that it was not a matter of wanting to help, but that my house simply could not accommodate her wedding. I tried to explain that it would be stressful and that I wanted to be present at her wedding without worrying about logistics, cleaning, or accommodating guests. I even suggested some alternative venues that were budget-friendly and intimate. She brushed all of them off, saying, "None of them feel like US. Only your house feels like US." At this point, my parents got involved. They called me and said I needed to be a good sister and not ruin Emily's special day. I felt cornered. I explained that I wasn't refusing to be part of the wedding or celebrate with her, but that I simply could not host it. I even offered to take her out for a private dinner or help with the wedding planning in other ways. They said that hosting was a family duty and that I was being cold. Eventually, Emily started to openly guilt-trip me in front of friends and extended family, sending group texts and posting comments like, "Can't believe my own sister won't let me have my dream wedding at her house." Some friends reached out to me asking if I was being unfair, and I honestly didn't know what to say. I tried to explain the practical reasons, but many people seemed to think I was overreacting. The day before the wedding, Emily called me crying and told me that she didn't want to go through with it without me hosting. I told her again that it was not feasible and that I would love to be there as a guest, fully supportive, and help with anything I could without hosting. She said, "You don't get it. This is about love and family. How can you refuse your own sister?" Finally, I decided to step back and not engage in further arguments. I confirmed my attendance as a guest and brought a gift. At the wedding, there were moments when she seemed happy to see me, but she also made comments during the reception about how some people just don't step up for family. After the wedding, my parents continued to bring it up, asking if I regretted not hosting. Emily hasn't spoken much to me since, except for a brief text thanking me for attending. I feel like I'm being punished for setting boundaries, but I also feel like I handled the situation reasonably. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding, even though she called it her once-in-a-lifetime event and pressured me extensively? I did not refuse to support her, attend, or help in other ways. I simply said my home was not suitable for hosting an entire wedding. I want to make it clear, I'm not heartless. I love Emily, and I tried to help in ways that were realistic for me. But I also have my own life, responsibilities, and limits, and I feel like everyone is telling me those don't matter when it comes to her happiness. I'm torn because I want to maintain a healthy relationship with her, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries or mental health. Was I wrong here? AITA? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my children? This past year has been an emotional roller coaster for me, and I am still trying to make sense of it all. I, 34F, have 2 children, a 10-year-old daughter named Emma and a 7-year-old son named Max. My younger sister, Rachel, 30F, has always been a very traditional person, meticulous about appearances, events, and social expectations. I respect that, even if I don't always agree with it. We have always had a complicated relationship, close in some ways, competitive in others. Our parents always encouraged us to get along, and most of the time, we do, but the tension between us tends to surface during family events. Rachel got engaged about a year ago. From the moment she announced her engagement, she began meticulously planning every detail of her wedding. She wanted a grand event in a luxury hotel, a very specific color scheme, and a guest list that reflected the perfect social image. I tried to stay supportive, helping with ideas, and even offering to help with some arrangements. But early on, I noticed she had a certain way of speaking about my children that made me uncomfortable. She would make casual comments about how well-behaved children should be at weddings, implying that Emma and Max might not fit that image. I brushed it off, hoping it was just her stress talking. As the wedding planning progressed, her comments escalated. During a discussion about seating arrangements, she told me, "I don't want the kids running around during the ceremony. Maybe you should find someone to babysit them." I reminded her that we always handle our kids ourselves, and they are perfectly capable of sitting through a wedding if given proper guidance. She scoffed and said, "They're kids. They'll disrupt everything." I tried to reason with her, suggesting a small area with activities or toys for them, but she dismissed it outright, saying, "No, I don't want to see them at all during the important parts." When the invitations came, I noticed that my children were included, but with a note. Children must remain seated and quiet at all times. Misbehavior will result in immediate removal. I was taken aback. I've never seen a wedding invitation with a warning like that, and I felt it was unnecessarily harsh. I considered speaking to her, but I decided to wait until a calm moment to discuss it in person. A week later, I sat down with Rachel to talk about it. I explained that Emma and Max are well-behaved, but like any children, they might need occasional guidance. I suggested compromises, such as allowing them to have a small play area or letting them leave early if they got tired. Rachel, however, reacted angrily. She said, "I don't care. I've planned this wedding for months, and I don't want anything to ruin it. You're being defensive over nothing." I tried to reason with her, but she was adamant. She said that if the kids caused any problem, it would reflect poorly on her wedding, and she would not tolerate it. As the wedding date approached, I realized I had to make a choice. I could either attend the wedding under extremely rigid conditions that treated my children as potential liabilities, or I could stay home. I love my sister, but I also love my children and refuse to let them be treated like nuisances. I attempted one last time to reach a compromise, offering to have a professional babysitter supervise them during the ceremony, which would guarantee that Rachel wouldn't have to worry about them. Her response was cold and dismissive. "No, they're your responsibility. I don't want to deal with any risk." Ultimately, I decided not to attend the wedding. I explained to Rachel that I could not go somewhere that made my children feel unwelcome or that treated them as a problem. I offered to celebrate with her privately at another time or help in other ways that didn't involve the kids being present, but she refused. The day of the wedding, I stayed home with Em and Max. I made it a special day for them, with activities they love and a small celebratory dinner at home. When I spoke to my parents after the wedding, they expressed disappointment in my decision. They said I should have compromised more and that Rachel might feel hurt. I told them that my primary responsibility is to my children and their emotional well-being. My partner also supported my decision, saying that forcing the kids into an unwelcoming environment would have caused unnecessary stress for everyone. Rachel, however, has not spoken to me since the wedding. I sent her a message a few days afterward, expressing that I am willing to mend things and that I hope she understands my perspective, but she hasn't responded. Some mutual friends have taken sides, with a few saying that I overreacted and should have attended anyway, and others agreeing that my children's feelings and comfort are valid. I am torn. On one hand, I feel justified in protecting my children and refusing to be complicit in a situation that treated them like unwelcome guests. On the other hand, I feel sad that my decision has caused such a rift with my sister. I also wonder if there was a way I could have handled it differently to avoid the fallout, or if my choice was the only reasonable option. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of the way she treated my children. AITA for refusing to lend my brother money after he sabotaged my career. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger brother, Ben, 28M. Growing up, we were close but also competitive. Our parents, although loving, had a tendency to compare us, which I think fueled some of Ben's resentment toward me. I was always academically driven and career-oriented, while Ben was more of a free spirit, often hopping between jobs and hobbies without committing. About 5 years ago, I landed a really great position at a mid-sized tech company. It was my dream job, and I was thrilled. Ben, on the other hand, had been working part-time at a retail store and struggling financially. From the start, he seemed supportive, but over time, I started noticing subtle digs, comments about how my job was easy or boring, or that I was wasting my life sitting in an office. At first, I brushed it off as sibling rivalry, but looking back, it might have been the start of something more intentional. A couple of years ago, my company was gearing up for a major project that had the potential to fast-track promotions for anyone involved. I was chosen to lead the team, which was a huge deal for me. Around this time, Ben approached me asking for help. He had a friend who owed him money and needed a co-signer on a loan. He claimed a friend had a solid job and just needed my signature to secure the loan. I hesitated, but eventually agreed, thinking I was just doing a small favor. Things went south quickly. The friend defaulted on the loan almost immediately, and I ended up being liable for a sum that, while manageable, was significant enough to affect my finances. I was angry, but tried to handle it quietly. I assumed Ben didn't realize the impact, but things got worse. A few months later, I discovered that some critical documents for my project had gone missing. I spent hours tracking down digital backups, but someone had clearly tampered with files, causing delays. My manager was frustrated, and I ended up getting a warning about meeting deadlines. Initially, I couldn't prove anything, so I didn't confront anyone. But then, a friend from HR mentioned that there had been unusual logins from a home IP address that matched Ben's internet provider. At first, I couldn't believe it. I called Ben, asking if he had accessed my work remotely for any reason. He denied it outright. I didn't have concrete proof yet, so I let it go for the time being, but I tightened my security and monitored everything closely. Months later, I got an anonymous tip with screenshots showing that Ben had been logging into my work account and deleting files related to the project. I was shocked and devastated. Not only had he financially dragged me down with that loan issue, but he had actively sabotaged my career. I confronted him via text, and his response was infuriating. He said he was just trying to teach me a lesson for being so perfect all the time and that he didn't mean for it to get that bad. He didn't apologize in any meaningful way. I ended up reporting the situation to HR, who investigated and confirmed the breaches. I was able to salvage the project, but the experience left me stressed and deeply hurt. Fast forward to now, Ben is in financial trouble again. He's asking me for a loan, this time a much larger one than before. He claims he has a new business opportunity that will definitely succeed and is promising to pay me back within a few months. I immediately said no. He got extremely angry, saying I was being petty and holding a grudge. He even tried to guilt me, saying that I was the only family member who could help him and that he's learned from past mistakes. Our parents are involved at this point. They think I should forgive and forget and help him, citing family loyalty. My friends and coworkers all think I'm justified in refusing given the history. I've explained that after what happened with the loan and the sabotage, I can't risk lending him money again. I also worry that if I lend him the money, it could give him leverage to manipulate me again. Ben says I'm being unreasonable and that I'm letting one mistake define our relationship. He insists that everyone deserves a second chance, but I feel like he's never really taken responsibility for what he did. He's never reimbursed me for the first loan and never apologized sincerely for interfering with my work. I want to help him succeed, but not at the expense of my own stability or peace of mind. I've tried to set boundaries with him, but he keeps pushing. He accused me of being selfish and cold, which hurt because I've always tried to maintain a good relationship with him despite our differences. I honestly feel like he's using emotional manipulation to get what he wants. I'm torn because I want to be supportive as a sister, but I also need to protect myself. I know family loyalty is important, and I do feel guilty for saying no, but part of me wonders if forgiving him in a practical sense would just open me up to more problems. I've been clear that I can't lend him money, and I've offered to help in other ways, like connecting him with legitimate resources for loans or helping him brainstorm business ideas without putting my own finances at risk. He refuses those alternatives, insisting that only I can help him. So here's where I'm at. I'm firm in my decision not to lend him money, but my parents and Ben are calling me the villain in this scenario. Am I overreacting, or is it reasonable to refuse given the history of betrayal and financial risk? AITA? AITA for refusing to let my brother move back in after he kicked me out of my own house? I, 33F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger brother, Dan, 30M. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but extremely competitive in others. Our parents always encouraged him to lean on me for guidance, and honestly, I did my best to help him, even when it came at my own expense. Fast forward to the past few years. I bought a house in a decent neighborhood about 5 years ago, and I worked extremely hard to maintain it and make it a home. Dan has had a much rockier path. He's had multiple jobs, none of which he stayed at for long, and he has struggled with substance abuse on and off since his early 20s. About a year ago, Dan hit a low point. He had been living in a small, run-down apartment that was constantly infested with bedbugs and rodents. He called me one night crying, saying he had nowhere to go, and I, against my better judgment, agreed to let him stay temporarily. I thought temporary meant a month or so until he could stabilize. I had no idea this would turn into a complete nightmare. At first, I tried to be accommodating. I gave him a key, allowed him to stay in the guest bedroom, and even bought him groceries when he didn't have money. But soon, it became clear that he had no intention of making changes or contributing. He stopped looking for work, started bringing friends over who were loud and sometimes involved in shady activities, and refused to follow the basic house rules I had set. He'd leave trash in the living room, dishes in the sink for days, and once even flushed something down the toilet that caused a major plumbing issue. I tried talking to him about it multiple times, explaining that this was supposed to be temporary and that he needed to start taking responsibility for his life. Dan would cry, make promises, and sometimes clean up for a day or two, but it always went back to chaos. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back. One evening, I came home from work to find that Dan had invited several friends over without telling me. They were drinking, playing loud music, and one of them had spilled red wine all over my new sofa. I was furious and told him that this was it. He needed to leave by the end of the week. Dan didn't take it well. He started yelling, saying I was heartless and didn't care about family. The confrontation escalated, and in a moment of anger, he shoved me, and I ended up tripping over a chair and injuring my ankle. After that, I called the police, filed a report, and gave him a strict deadline to move out. He left, but not before sending me a string of texts accusing me of betrayal and being selfish. My parents sided with me initially, but Dan's friends and his social media campaign made it seem like I had abandoned him, which caused a lot of tension in my family. Fast forward a few months. Dan claims he's finally turned things around. He's been clean for a little over 6 months and has been saving money. Recently, he reached out to me, saying he wants to move back in temporarily while he transitions into a new job and saves enough for his own place. He promised he would follow all house rules and that he would pay rent this time. I told him no. I explained that what he did before was unacceptable and that I am not putting myself in a position where I could be physically harmed or have my home disrespected again. I also reminded him that he has other options. He could rent a room, stay with a friend, or even stay with our parents. Dan reacted very badly. He called me cruel, a terrible sister, and said that after everything he went through, I should support him. He even started spreading messages on social media, painting me as the villain who refuses to help her own brother. Our parents are now caught in the middle. They understand my side, but are worried about the family fallout. Some extended family members have started to pressure me, asking why I can't forgive and forget, and suggesting that I should let Dan stay, even temporarily. I've tried explaining that my forgiveness doesn't mean I am obligated to let him back into my home, but it feels like nobody is really listening. Here's where I need outside perspective. I feel like I am doing the right thing for my safety, my property, and my mental health. I have boundaries, and he crossed them in the worst way. But my brother's friends and parts of my family are making me feel guilty, suggesting I'm heartless and selfish. Some of my coworkers know the story and have expressed shock that I would refuse to help family. I'm torn because I do want my brother to succeed, and I am genuinely happy that he's making positive changes. I've offered to help him in other ways, helping with job applications, giving financial advice, or even helping him find a place to rent, but letting him move back in feels like setting myself up for disaster. AITA for refusing to let my brother move back in my house after everything that happened. AITA for refusing to let my younger brother live with me after he lost his job and relationship. I, 34M, have always been the responsible sibling in my family. I've had a stable career for over 10 years, own my home, and generally like to keep my life organized. My younger brother, Sam, 29M, has always struggled a bit with consistency in work and relationships. He's smart and funny, but he has a tendency to make impulsive decisions that often backfire. Last month, Sam called me out of the blue, sounding desperate. He had just lost his job at a startup. His girlfriend of 2 years had broken up with him, and he had nowhere to go because his apartment lease had ended. He asked if he could move in with me temporarily until he got back on his feet. I hesitated. Sam has stayed with me before during rough patches, but it's never been smooth. In the past, he has overstayed his welcome, spent money irresponsibly, and left the apartment messy. But I also remembered that my parents always drilled into me to help family when they're in need. I spent a few days thinking it over, but eventually I told him that I didn't think it would be a good idea. I explained that I work long hours, I have a demanding job, and my home is my sanctuary. I also mentioned that I wanted him to explore other options, like staying with friends, applying for short-term rentals, or even looking into temporary housing programs. Sam didn't take it well. He accused me of being selfish and unsupportive, saying that a real brother would drop everything to help him. He reminded me of everything I had that he didn't: my stable job, my home, and my perfect life. He said I was prioritizing comfort over family. Our conversation ended badly, and we haven't really spoken since. A week later, I received a few messages from mutual friends who said Sam was telling everyone that I refused to help him because I didn't care about him. Some of them tried to convince me to let him move in after all, but I stayed firm. I even offered to help him with job applications, review his resume, and look for temporary housing options. I wanted to support him in a practical way without sacrificing my own boundaries. My parents got involved too. They called me and said I was being unreasonable and that I should just let him stay a few weeks. They reminded me that family comes first. I tried to explain my side, but they didn't really understand. They said I was putting my comfort over my brother's needs and that I would regret it if I didn't help him. My friends are split. Some say I'm doing the right thing by maintaining boundaries and not letting past issues repeat themselves. Others say I should have let him stay, even if just temporarily, because he's going through a rough time and might need me more than ever. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I genuinely want to help Sam, and I've offered alternative forms of support. On the other hand, I remember past experiences where his stays ended up being disruptive, and I value my mental health and the stability of my home. I also worry that if I let him stay, it might set a precedent for future situations, where he expects me to drop everything every time he faces a problem. Since our fight, Sam has been distant and angry. He occasionally sends passive-aggressive messages like, "Thanks for not being there for me," or, "I guess family isn't that important after all." My parents are still subtly pressuring me, and a few mutual friends have stopped talking to me because they think I'm in the wrong. I keep replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently. I considered offering him a limited time frame, like 1 or 2 weeks, with strict rules about contributing financially and maintaining the apartment. But I worry that even a short stay could lead to tension and resentment later on. At the same time, I hate the idea of being seen as the bad brother by everyone, especially when I'm trying to help him in ways I feel are reasonable. Even thought about checking for professional advice on how to support family without enabling bad habits. But I'm not sure if that's necessary or if I'm overcomplicating things. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother move in after he lost his job and relationship. Even though I've offered alternative ways to support him, I feel like I'm being practical and setting boundaries, but everyone around me seems to think I'm being selfish and uncaring. I want to do right by my family, but I also don't want to compromise my own stability or let old patterns repeat themselves. I'm stuck between wanting to help and not wanting to invite chaos into my life. Has anyone else been in a similar situation, where helping a family member meant risking your own well-being? How do you balance compassion with boundaries without being seen as cruel? I'd like some honest perspective on whether I'm truly in the wrong here, or if it's okay to protect my home and mental health while still supporting my brother in other ways. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. I, 28F, have always been close to my older sister, Megan, 32F. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even now, despite living in different cities, we talk almost every day. Our parents divorced when we were teenagers, and Megan took on a lot of responsibility at home, which I will always admire her for. Recently, Megan got engaged to a man named Connor, 34M, and I have to say, from the start, I've had serious concerns about him. Connor seems like a charming, outgoing guy at first glance, but I quickly noticed red flags. For context, he has a history of getting very angry over minor issues, especially if he feels criticized. I saw it happen a few times during family dinners, and even once when Megan mentioned she didn't like a haircut he chose for himself. He stormed out of the room and didn't speak to anyone for nearly an hour. Megan always excuses this behavior, saying he's passionate and just needs time to cool off. I try to brush it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting, but the incidents kept happening. About 6 months ago, Megan confided in me that Connor has been emotionally manipulative. She said he often uses guilt to control situations, and sometimes he threatens to break off the relationship if she disagrees with him. She seemed torn because she really loves him, but she also admitted she felt anxious about some of his moods. I tried to give her advice without being pushy, but I made it clear that I had serious concerns about their dynamic. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. Megan announced that she and Connor had set the wedding date. The family got excited, and everyone started planning, including me. I was initially happy, wanting to support her. But soon after, I began noticing that Connor was pressuring Megan in ways that made me uncomfortable. For example, he insisted that the wedding be held in a city neither of them lives in, far from family, because it's where I want it. When Megan expressed that this would be inconvenient for many family members, he told her, if they truly care about you, they'll come. Then came the final straw. Megan's parents wanted to give her a meaningful family heirloom during the ceremony, something that has been in the family for generations. Connor immediately objected, saying it clashed with the aesthetic he had planned and that it was too old-fashioned. Megan felt she had to give in, which visibly upset her parents. At that moment, I saw how controlling he could be, and it hit me that he might continue to undermine her even on her wedding day. I tried to discuss this with Megan calmly. I told her that while I want her to be happy, I cannot be in an environment where someone treats her poorly or manipulates those around her. I expressed that I was seriously considering not attending the wedding unless I could be confident it would be safe and respectful for her. Megan reacted angrily. She said that I was being judgmental and that Connor is nothing like the way I described him. She said, "You're making him out to be the villain. and you're hurting me by not trusting my judgment. I tried to explain that my concern is about observing behavior and patterns, not making assumptions. I offered to meet with him privately to get to know him better and see if he could show me a different side, but Megan said that would be unnecessary. She told me that she feels my distrust is insulting, and she needed me to either support her fully or step back. After a week of reflection, I sent Megan a message explaining that I would not be attending the wedding. I told her that it was heartbreaking for me to make this decision, but I could not celebrate in an environment where I feared her partner would continue manipulative behaviors, and I could not ignore patterns I've witnessed. I offered to celebrate with her privately after the wedding or support her in other ways that didn't require me to be at the ceremony. The response from my family was immediate. My parents are split. My mom supports my concerns, but my dad thinks I'm overreacting and says I should attend to keep the peace. My sister has gone completely silent toward me since I sent the message. Our group chat, which used to be lively, has turned into a cold string of wedding planning messages without me. A few extended family members have called me judgmental and accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness. Since then, I've been under a lot of pressure. Everyone seems to think I'm in the wrong for putting my principles before my sister's big day. Some friends say I'm making a big deal out of nothing, and that most couples have minor controlling tendencies. Others tell me I'm justified and that it's important to maintain boundaries, especially when someone's behavior is manipulative. I'm not trying to ruin Megan's life or her wedding. I genuinely wish she could be happy, but I feel strongly that I cannot put myself in a situation that might normalize or enable behavior that I consider emotionally abusive. I've considered the possibility that I might be overreacting or misreading Connor, but the more I think about it, the more certain I am that I need to honor my own judgment and boundaries. So here's the situation. I refuse to attend my sister's wedding because I believe her fiancé has a manipulative and controlling personality, and I don't want to support that by being present. My sister and some family members see me as the villain for this decision. I feel hurt because I'm trying to protect both myself and, in a way, my sister from potentially harmful dynamics, but it's tearing my family apart. AITA for not attending my sister's wedding over concerns about her fiancé. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my house after she asked me to accommodate him for a week. I, 28F, live in a small 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I have a roommate, Sam, 27M, and our apartment is already pretty cramped. I've been living here for about 4 years, and I've always kept a pretty strict rule about guests. Occasional visits are fine, but overnight stays longer than 2 nights are usually not something I'm comfortable with. I enjoy my space and need my privacy, and Sam respects that as well. My sister, Laura, 30F, recently got engaged to a guy named Josh, 32M. Josh seems nice enough, but I've only met him a few times at family events. Laura and Josh are planning a destination wedding next summer, which I'm excited about, but the planning has been chaotic from start. They keep changing venues, guest lists, and even the wedding date several times. Laura is understandably stressed, and she reached out to me last week asking for a favor. She explained that Josh's apartment is undergoing renovations, and he can't stay there for about a week. She asked if he could stay at my apartment while the work is being done. She said he would just need a place to sleep, and he'd mostly be out during the day. She framed it as a temporary solution to a stressful situation, and initially, I tried to be sympathetic. I asked a few questions about the timing, and she mentioned it would be from Monday to the following Sunday. That's a full 7 days. I felt my anxiety rising immediately because that's a long time to have someone I don't know very well in my personal space. I politely said that I wasn't sure if that would work. I explained that my apartment is small, I have limited privacy, and that my roommate might not be comfortable either. I also mentioned that I need my space to work from home, as I sometimes do freelance projects, and having someone else in the apartment for an entire week could disrupt my workflow. Laura got upset and said I was being unreasonable. She said, "It's just a week, and he's family now. You'll barely notice him. Can't you just help me out this once?" I tried to reason with her. I suggested alternatives like booking a short-term Airbnb or asking her friends if they could host him. I even offered to help her find a place, but she brushed off all my suggestions. She said, "You're my sister. You should support me. I can't believe you turned your back on me over a week." She also tried guilt-tripping me by mentioning all the times I stayed at her place when I had no other options, implying that I owed her this favor. I reminded her that my stays at her apartment were usually planned and agreed upon in advance, not last-minute requests for an entire week. She didn't acknowledge that point. Things escalated when Josh got involved. He called me directly, which I found a little invasive since this was supposed to be a conversation between my sister and me. He was polite but insistent, saying he'd be super low maintenance and that it would really help Laura out. He mentioned he could sleep on the couch, wouldn't use my things without asking, and would even cook sometimes. I still felt uncomfortable. I value my personal space, and having a stranger, even a polite one, living in my home for a week felt like a huge violation of my boundaries. I finally told Laura, and Josh affirmed no. I said that it's nothing personal against Josh, but I simply can't host someone for a full week. I explained that I have my routines, my work, and my roommate to consider, and that it would be too stressful for me. Laura started crying and accused me of being selfish. She said, "I can't believe you're putting yourself over your own family. After everything, you're really just going to leave me to deal with this?" I reminded her that helping her find a solution is not the same as hosting someone in my home. I even offered to help with logistics, like paying for a few nights at a nearby hotel or helping Josh find short-term rental. She refused all of it. The day after this conversation, Laura texted me a long message saying that she felt betrayed and that our relationship might be strained because of my decision. She said she expected more support from her family and that I was making a small inconvenience into a huge issue. I tried to explain calmly that I wasn't refusing to help her entirely. I was just setting boundaries about what I'm comfortable with. I pointed out that hosting someone for a week is not a minor inconvenience for me. It's a significant disruption. I even reminded her that boundaries are important for maintaining a healthy relationship, but she said I was just being difficult and that Josh wouldn't be a burden. My parents got involved after she called them to complain. They were frustrated with me, saying I should put family first and that it's just a temporary situation. I told them the same things I told Laura. It's about personal space and comfort, not unwillingness to help. My mom said I was overthinking and that I should just suck it up for the sake of my sister. My dad was more neutral, but didn't back me fully, which frustrated me because I felt like my feelings were being dismissed. Now Laura is upset with me. Josh is upset with me. My parents are somewhat disappointed, and I feel guilty, but also frustrated. I haven't spoken much to Laura since, and she keeps making comments about how families should be there for each other, and it's just a week. How hard can it be? I genuinely don't feel like hosting Josh is reasonable, but the guilt from everyone is making me second-guess myself. My roommate supports me 100% and thinks I did the right thing, but that doesn't make the situation with my sister any less tense. I'm wondering if I really am being selfish here. I know it's a temporary situation, but it's a whole week with someone I barely know in a small apartment that I share. I feel like my need for personal space is valid, but I also feel like I might be overreacting since it is for family. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé stay at my place for a week. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding because of her behavior leading up to the event. I, 32F, have always been close to my sister, 29F, though we have very different personalities. I'm organized, punctual, and I like to plan things well in advance. She is spontaneous, a bit chaotic, and thrives on improvisation. Our parents passed away when we were young, and for a long time, I've been the one who held the family together. I've always been supportive of her, often bending over backward to help her when she got into sticky situations, from moving apartments last minute to helping her with financial struggles. About a year ago, she got engaged. She was excited, but immediately made it clear she wanted me to host the wedding at my house. I live in a moderately sized suburban home with a decent backyard. She said she wanted an intimate, cozy, wedding with around 80 guests. At first, I was flattered, though I was also a bit nervous. My house isn't a wedding venue, and I knew it would take a lot of work, but I thought it was doable. I agreed to help her, expecting that she would at least be organized and respectful about it. Things started unraveling almost immediately. First, she demanded that I clear out the entire backyard, which I had already meticulously landscaped. She insisted that the lawn needed to be perfectly flat for this ceremony setup, and that some flower beds needed to be completely removed. I tried to compromise by suggesting we use portable flooring or a tent setup, but she dismissed my ideas, saying my solutions were boring and not elegant enough. I spent a few weekends rearranging the garden and removing plants, which was frustrating but manageable. Then, she started sending me lists of things I was responsible for. This included renting tables, chairs, and tents, coordinating catering, making the wedding cake, and even sourcing specific floral arrangements. I reminded her several times that I work full-time and that I wasn't planning to pay for the wedding either, but she seemed to think that hosting the wedding at my house automatically made me the de facto planner and financial contributor. I tried to draw boundaries politely, but every attempt was met with guilt-tripping or emotional appeals, such as, "I can't imagine my big day without you doing this for me," or "Mom would have loved this." As the months went on, her demands escalated. She started criticizing my house, my furniture, and even my choice of paint colors. She insisted that the wedding could not proceed unless certain changes were made, including repainting rooms that no guest would even see. She also demanded that I handle all RSVPs, manage seating arrangements, and even create a detailed schedule for her bridal party. When I suggested that she could hire a coordinator or delegate tasks to friends, she acted offended, claiming that I don't trust anyone but you to make this perfect. By this point, I was exhausted. I had spent hundreds of dollars, countless hours, and emotional energy trying to meet her expectations, and it seemed like nothing was ever good enough. 2 weeks before the wedding, she sent me a 15-page document with instructions for every single detail, from table settings to the exact positioning of candles. She then texted me late at night, complaining that I hadn't followed her instructions precisely, even though she had been changing her mind constantly. The breaking point came when she called me one evening in tears because a caterer she wanted was booked for the wrong date. She demanded that I cancel my own plans for the following weekend to track down another caterer and make sure everything would be perfect. I calmly told her that I could not be responsible for fixing her mistakes or rearranging my entire life to meet her last-minute demands. She accused me of being selfish and unsisterly, and then hung up. The next day, I decided I had had enough. I sent her a long message explaining that while I loved her and wanted her wedding to be special, I could not host it in my home under these conditions. I outlined that I was happy to help in ways that were reasonable, like offering advice or helping with a few tasks that didn't require me to give up my entire life for months, but that I was not available to take on the full burden of hosting and planning. Her response was explosive. She told me that I was ruining her dream wedding and making her feel like I don't care about her happiness. She started posting passive-aggressive messages on social media about family obligations and sisters who abandon each other when it matters most. Our mutual friends began reaching out to me, some accusing me of being overreactive, while others privately admitted that my sister had been extremely demanding. I have since stood firm. I suggested that she consider renting a small venue, hiring a coordinator, or even having a backyard wedding elsewhere, but she refuses to compromise. I'm worried about how this will affect our relationship long-term, but I honestly feel that hosting the wedding under her current expectations would have caused me immense stress and resentment. I want to support her, but not at the cost of my own mental health and personal boundaries. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding at my house after months of unreasonable demands and emotional manipulation. AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay over and facing backlash from my whole family. I, 34F, have always been the responsible one in my family, the one who keeps things in order and follows rules. My sister, Julia, 29F, is the opposite, very free-spirited, often irresponsible, and prone to making impulsive decisions. We have a strained but functional relationship. We can get along most of the time, but things get tense when boundaries are crossed. Recently, a situation with her kids has made things almost unbearable, and I'm questioning whether I overreacted. Julia has 2 children, Ethan, 7M, and Lila, 4F. They're generally well-behaved, but her parenting style is extremely lax. She often lets them eat junk food excessively, stay up late, skip school when convenient, and watch TV or play video games for hours. I don't have children of my own, but I take my responsibilities seriously in my personal life. I also have a small apartment that isn't really suited for kids for more than a day or two. The story began a few weeks ago. Julia called me one evening, out of breath and panicked, asking if her kids could stay at my place for the weekend because she had an emergency. She didn't specify what kind of emergency, just said she couldn't take care of them and needed me to watch them. I asked her for more details, but she just said, "It's complicated. Please just say yes." I hesitated and told her I needed to know what the emergency was before agreeing. She got defensive, accusing me of being cold and not supporting her. I reminded her that I'm happy to help when possible, but I need a plan, especially since I work full-time and can't just drop everything. She called me unsympathetic and ended the call abruptly. The next day, she called again, still vague, and I told her straight up I couldn't take them for the weekend. I explained my reasons. I work full-time, my apartment isn't childproof, and I needed to maintain my boundaries. She begged, guilt-tripped, and even suggested I owe her this because I'd asked her to help me a few years ago when I had a minor crisis. I reminded her that my help back then was limited and planned, and that this is not the same as being a 24/7 childcare provider on short notice. She ended up sulking but agreed to make other arrangements. That should have been the end of it, but it escalated at a family dinner a week later. Julia showed up with Ethan and Lila in tow, without telling me, and plopped them in my lap while I was sitting on the couch. I was shocked and immediately said, "Julia, I can't take care of them right now. You can't just leave your kids here without asking." She laughed nervously and said, "Come on, you're fine. They'll be good." I told her firmly again that I couldn't do it and that she needed to take them home. That's when my parents jumped in. They started lecturing me about family responsibilities, saying, "You're being selfish and it's just for a weekend. How hard can it be?" My siblings echoed similar sentiments, with one of them saying, "You're supposed to support your family. That's what sisters do." I tried to explain that I'm supportive in other ways, helping with school projects, giving advice, taking them to the park occasionally, but that doesn't mean I can or should be a last-minute babysitter, especially when my sister refuses to communicate responsibly. Julia eventually took her kids home, but the backlash hasn't stopped. Every time the family gathers, they hint or outright say, I should have just taken the kids. I feel like my boundaries are being completely dismissed, and I'm stressed out because I don't know how to navigate this without escalating tensions further. I know I could have handled some parts more gently, maybe suggesting alternative solutions like a babysitter or offering a shorter visit, but I was caught off guard and frustrated by the repeated pressure and guilt tripping. My parents keep telling me that I need to prioritize family over comfort, but I feel like that's unreasonable when the request is so sudden, ill-planned, and disruptive to my life. The part that's bothering me the most is that my family keeps framing this as me being cold and unloving. I love my niece and nephew dearly, but I also know my limits and responsibilities. I feel like I'm being punished for having boundaries. I've started avoiding family events because every interaction turns into a lecture about how I should have stepped up for Julia. I'm now wondering if I truly am in the wrong for refusing to take her kids on such short notice. My parents argue that family should come first, but I feel like my sister's lack of planning shouldn't become my crisis. I also feel like the constant guilt tripping is unfair and emotionally exhausting. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's kids stay over for the weekend and insisting on my boundaries, even if it upset my family? Or am I being too rigid and unsympathetic? AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law a large sum of money for a business she wants to start? This is going to be a bit long, but I want to give all the context so it's clear. I, 34M, have been married to my wife, Emma, 33F, for 8 years. We have 2 kids, ages 5 and 7. My sister-in-law, Lisa, 31F, has always been someone who comes across as really ambitious and entrepreneurial. She's married to my brother-in-law, Mark, 36M, who has a stable but average-paying job, and they have 1 child together. About 2 months ago, Lisa came to me and Emma with a business idea. She wants to start a boutique candle company. The concept is niche, luxury-scented candles with a focus on sustainability and mindfulness. I won't lie, it sounds like a trendy business, but it also seems like it would require a large upfront investment for materials, branding, marketing, and production. Lisa told us she's already saved around $5,000, but she estimated she'd need another $30,000 to really launch in a way she wants. She asked me directly if I could lend her the money. Here's the thing. I've always been fairly cautious with money. Emma and I have a decent financial cushion, own our house, and I have a solid emergency fund. That said, $30,000 is not something I hand out lightly, even if family. We also recently took a big loan for renovations, so while we're doing fine, we're not exactly swimming in disposable cash. I told Lisa up front that $30,000 was a huge amount and that I wasn't comfortable lending that kind of money, especially without a detailed business plan and clear repayment terms. Lisa didn't take that well. She argued that I could easily afford it, that we are well off, and that helping family is what family does. She also said it's a business investment, not just a loan, and that she'd make it profitable quickly. I reminded her that making money from a startup, especially in a niche luxury market, is far from guaranteed and that I couldn't risk my family's financial security on her idea. Over the next few weeks, the tension increased. Lisa started dropping hints whenever we met, bringing up how we are financially secure and subtly implying that it would be easy for me to help her out. Mark tried to mediate, saying he understood both sides, but it didn't really help. Emma has been supportive of my decision, agreeing that it's too big a risk. She suggested maybe I could contribute a smaller, symbolic amount like $500 to $1,000 to show support without risking serious money, but even that made Lisa bristle. She said anything less than $30,000 was practically nothing and that I was underestimating her business potential. The real breaking point happened last weekend during a family dinner. Lisa brought up the topic again, but this time in front of our extended family. She said something along the lines of, "It's hard to understand how my own brother's wife wouldn't want to help me achieve my dreams. Some people prioritize money over family, I guess." That stung. I tried to explain calmly that my decision isn't about not caring about her or her dreams, but about protecting my own family stability. I also pointed out that I was happy to help her brainstorm, review her business plan, or offer advice, just not the full financial backing she wanted. Lisa's response was immediate and heated. She accused me of being selfish and even said that if I can't support her in this way, maybe I'm not really part of the family. The extended family got quiet, and I didn't really know how to respond without escalating things. I just said again that I care about her, but I'm not in a position to risk $30,000 on a business that might fail. After that, there's been a noticeable coldness in our interactions. Lisa barely speaks to me unless she has to, and Mark seems frustrated that things blew up. I've been thinking maybe I could compromise by offering to co-sign a small business loan, so she could get part of the money from a bank, and I'd only be on the hook. If she defaulted, but even that feels like a slippery slope. I don't want to damage my relationship with Emma or our kids' security over this. A few people in my circle have told me I'm being overly cautious and that family should support each other, especially with an ambitious idea like this. Others have said I'm completely justified. $30,000 is a lot, and there's no guarantee her business will succeed. I honestly feel torn because I don't want to be seen as cruel, but I also don't want to jeopardize my own financial stability. So, AITA for refusing to give my sister-in-law $30,000 to start her candle business? AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister after a family argument that got way out of hand? I, 34M, have always considered myself a laid-back person, but over the last few months, tensions in my family have been building to a point where it feels like we are all walking on eggshells. It started when my sister, Emma, 29F, decided to move back to our hometown after living abroad for 5 years. I was happy she was coming back, but it quickly became apparent that she expected everything to revolve around her, and the way she approached it rubbed me the wrong way. When Emma first returned, she immediately started bringing up past grievances in ways that seemed designed to make me feel guilty. She reminded me about situations from our teenage years where she claimed I had ruined certain opportunities for her, like a high school talent show she didn't get to perform in because I hogged the spotlight, or a family vacation where I supposedly embarrassed her in front of our parents. I tried to brush these off, assuming she was just nostalgic and maybe a little dramatic, but it became a pattern. The real breaking point came around the holidays. Our parents, who are very traditional and emphasize family unity, invited both of us over for Christmas. Emma arrived with her fiancé, Alex, and immediately began criticizing the way I had decorated the house, how I had handled the food, and even the music selection. I tried to shrug it off at first, joking about it, but she didn't take the hint. By the time dessert came around, she had openly told our parents that I always do things wrong, and implied that I was inconsiderate and selfish. I felt humiliated because this wasn't a small complaint. It was a full-on character attack in front of our family. After the gathering, I confronted Emma privately, asking her why she felt the need to criticize me so publicly. She claimed that I didn't understand her point of view and that I needed to reflect on my behavior because I was selfish and dismissive of her feelings. I told her I wasn't going to apologize for something I didn't do wrong, and that while I was willing to have a conversation about the past if she wanted, I would not accept personal attacks. Emma didn't take that well. She stormed out and immediately started texting our parents about how I refused to acknowledge my faults and hurt my sister's feelings intentionally. Over the next few days, my parents tried to mediate. They asked me to apologize to Emma for the confrontation, emphasizing that it was Christmas and that family harmony was more important than my pride. I refused, explaining that I wasn't willing to apologize for defending myself and that I felt Emma's behavior was manipulative. My parents were upset, but didn't push the issue too hard, probably because they could see how emotionally charged the situation had become. Things got worse when Emma's fiancé, Alex, got involved. He messaged me on social media, accusing me of being toxic and claiming that I was creating drama and alienating the family. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that I hadn't attacked anyone and that I wasn't the one causing the tension, but he dismissed everything I said and continued to insist that I apologize to Emma to save the family. A few weeks later, Emma posted a passive-aggressive message on Instagram about family members who can't own up to their mistakes and tagged our parents. I didn't respond, but my parents called me and asked me to reach out to her because they were worried about the ongoing tension and the effect it was having on them. I told them again that I wasn't going to apologize for something I didn't do, but I would be willing to talk about past issues calmly and rationally. My parents were frustrated, but seemed to accept that there wasn't much they could do. The situation reached a peak when Emma invited me to a small birthday gathering for our mother. I initially agreed because I didn't want to skip another family event, but when I got there, Emma immediately cornered me and demanded I apologize for everything I'd done wrong in the past. I tried to deflect and suggested we talk privately at another time, but she wouldn't let it go. Our conversation escalated quickly, with her yelling at me about years of neglect and selfishness, and me insisting that I couldn't apologize for things I hadn't done. At one point, she shoved a dessert plate at me in frustration, and I left the party early. Afterward, Emma sent a group message to several family members claiming I had stormed out and ruined the celebration and was unwilling to reconcile. My parents were caught in the middle, trying to mediate while also dealing with Emma's anger. Extended family members began taking sides, some telling me I should apologize to keep the peace, and others telling me Emma was unreasonable. Since then, the tension has not eased. Emma refuses to speak to me except through our parents, who are trying their best to facilitate communication. I have been firm in my stance that I will not apologize for defending myself or for things I did not do wrong, but I have offered to have calm, rational conversations about any past conflicts if she genuinely wants to resolve them. Emma refuses, insisting that the only way to fix things is for me to admit fault and apologize. Some friends have told me I should just apologize to avoid drama, while others think I'm right to stand my ground. I'm starting to feel like I'm being painted as the villain for refusing to take responsibility for things I didn't do. I care about my family, but I also feel like I shouldn't have to accept blame for someone else's long-standing grievances that are framed in a way that feels manipulative. So, AITA for refusing to apologize to my sister, even though it's causing a lot of tension within my family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger sister, Mia, 25F. Growing up, we shared everything from clothes to secrets, and we were genuinely inseparable. Our parents divorced when I was 14, and I often took on the role of a secondary parent to Mia, helping her navigate school, social issues, and just life in general. Our bond has remained strong through adulthood, even though we live in different cities now. About a year ago, Mia started dating someone named Darren, 27M. At first, I was cautiously optimistic because she seemed happy, but over time, I noticed a series of red flags. Darren was controlling in subtle ways. He would criticize what Mia wore, suggest she spend less time with her friends and family, and even made casual comments that undermined her confidence. Mia often laughed these off or defended him, saying he was just joking or he cares about me. I tried to keep an open mind because I wanted her to be happy, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Darren's behavior was manipulative. 6 months ago, Mia announced that she and Darren were engaged. I tried to be supportive, but during the engagement party, Darren made a few pointed remarks in front of my family that were incredibly disrespectful. He told me, "It's cute that you're trying to be the protective older sister, but Mia needs someone who knows how to handle a real woman." He also made offhand comments about my career, my living situation, and my social life, which I found humiliating and unnecessary. I excused myself from the party early, and Mia was upset with me for ruining the mood. I didn't want to start a fight in front of everyone, so I stayed silent at the time, but I made it clear privately to Mia that I didn't appreciate Darren's behavior. Over the next few months, my discomfort with Darren grew. He would often call Mia when she was busy with work or her friends and demand immediate responses, and I noticed him subtly trying to isolate her from our family. I voiced my concerns to Mia gently, trying to point out specific behaviors rather than attacking Darren as a person. She always reassured me that he loved her and that I was overreacting. The final straw came a few weeks ago when Mia asked me to help with wedding planning. She wanted me to coordinate the seating arrangement and communicate with several vendors. I agreed at first because I wanted to be helpful, but when I saw Darren's influence on the planning process, I felt increasingly uncomfortable. He insisted on things that I found offensive or exclusionary, like barring certain relatives from the ceremony for aesthetic reasons and making last-minute changes to important family traditions. I tried to discuss my concerns with Mia, but she would shut down or accuse me of trying to control her wedding. A few days ago, I told Mia that I could not, in good conscience, attend her wedding if Darren was there. I explained that I was worried about his controlling and manipulative behavior, and I couldn't support a relationship that seemed toxic. Mia was devastated. She accused me of being selfish, saying that this was her one day and I was choosing to ruin it over a minor disagreement. She also said I was turning our family against her, though my parents have expressed private support for my concerns. They just didn't want to get involved in a confrontation. I tried to compromise by offering to attend only the reception, but Mia refused. She insisted that if I wasn't there for the ceremony, she didn't want me at all. I explained again that it wasn't about missing the wedding day. It was about standing up for myself and refusing to endorse what I perceive as harmful behavior. She hasn't spoken to me since, and my parents are caught in the middle. Some of my extended family thinks I'm overreacting and that I should just put on a smile for Mia's special day. I know this might make me seem harsh, and I understand that Mia is excited and wants support, but I genuinely feel that attending the wedding would be endorsing a relationship I believe is harmful to her. I've tried talking to her calmly and offering compromises, but she refuses to acknowledge any concerns about Darren. I've been feeling extremely guilty, and even though I know I'm protecting myself and, in a sense, trying to protect Mia, I can't shake the feeling that I might be the asshole for choosing not to attend her wedding. I've tried to see things from her perspective, but the more I reflect on Darren's behavior, the more I feel like my decision is necessary. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I don't approve of her fiancé. AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices and causing a major family rift. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we shared everything, clothes, secrets, even friends at times. We had the typical sibling dynamics, teasing, occasional fights, but always supportive of each other. As adults, we maintained a close relationship despite living in different cities. Our parents live nearby, and we often have family dinners together. Emily got married 3 years ago to her husband, Matt, 30M, and they recently had their first child, a boy named Oliver. Since Oliver was born, I noticed a shift in Emily. She became extremely protective of him, which is normal to some degree, but it went beyond the usual new mom anxiety. She constantly posts on social media about how dangerous the world is and how everyone is a potential threat to Oliver. I tried to be supportive and offered advice when asked, but I noticed that she started to enforce extreme rules in her household. For example, she refuses to let anyone hold Oliver without prior consent, even close family. She's installed cameras in almost every room. She sterilizes everything that comes in contact with him, and she has a strict routine that must never be deviated from. It started to become problematic during family gatherings. At first, I complied with her rules because I wanted to respect her parenting style. But over time, it felt increasingly restrictive and tense. On one occasion, during a family dinner, I picked Oliver up to show him a new toy I had brought, thinking it was harmless. Emily immediately pulled him from my arms and started scolding me in front of everyone, saying I was reckless and selfish for touching him without asking. I apologized, but it felt like she had crossed a line by humiliating me publicly. Over the next few months, I tried to support her from a distance, but I also started noticing signs that her strictness was affecting Oliver. He seems overly cautious, almost anxious, and he often cries when we try to engage with him in normal, age-appropriate ways. I began to worry about his social development and emotional well-being. I tried gently mentioning this to Emily in private, suggesting that a little flexibility wouldn't harm him, but she became defensive, insisting that she was protecting him from a world that will hurt him at every turn. The situation escalated last month. My partner, David, 34M, and I invited Emily and Matt over for a small dinner. I wanted to have an honest conversation because I was concerned for Oliver. During the dinner, I tried to broach the topic delicately, asking Emily if she had considered the long-term impact of her extreme parenting style. I framed it as concern for Oliver's social and emotional development, not a criticism of her as a mother. Emily reacted explosively. She accused me of judging her parenting, undermining her authority, and trying to turn the family against her. She got up, picked Oliver, and left immediately, saying she was done with this toxic environment. Matt tried to calm her, but she refused to come back. I was left sitting there in shock, and the rest of the evening was awkward and silent. The next day, Emily sent me a long text saying that I was being controlling and selfish. She insisted that she knew what was best for her child and that I had no right to interfere. She also told me that our parents were taking her side and that I had caused a major rift in the family. I tried to respond calmly, explaining that my concern came from love and that I was not trying to control her choices, but she didn't respond. Our parents called me, upset that I had confronted Emily and made her feel attacked. Since then, Emily has blocked me on social media and won't answer my calls. Family gatherings have become tense, with both parents acting like I am in the wrong. I feel guilty because my relationship with my sister is now damaged, and I miss seeing Oliver grow up in a healthy, happy environment. However, I still worry about how Emily's extreme parenting might affect him long-term. I have considered apologizing for the way I brought it up, but I am hesitant because I do feel that my concerns were valid and came from a place of care. I also don't want to give the impression that it's acceptable for her to publicly humiliate or manipulate family members whenever she feels criticized. I am torn between trying to mend the relationship at the cost of suppressing my concerns or standing firm on my beliefs about Oliver's well-being. Friends and extended family are divided. Some say I overstepped, while others say I was justified in confronting her. So, AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting, even though it caused a huge family conflict and damaged our relationship. I feel like I did what any concerned family member might do, but the fallout has been devastating, and I'm questioning if I should have stayed silent and let her handle parenting in her own way. AITA for refusing to compromise on my wedding plans. Even though it upset my family, I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, James, 30M, for 6 years. We met in college, and from the beginning, we knew we both wanted a small, intimate wedding. Neither of us comes from very large families, and we've always preferred quieter gatherings over big, flashy events. When we got engaged last year, we started discussing the kind of wedding we wanted. Our budget is modest, and we planned for about 40 guests, mostly close friends and immediate family. From the start, my mother was skeptical. She's always dreamed of a big, traditional wedding with all the trimmings, hundreds of guests, a huge venue, elaborate decorations, the works. I tried explaining that our priorities are different and we don't want debt or stress over a single day. She said she understood, but I could tell she wasn't happy. My father is more laid back and didn't push much either way, though he occasionally hinted he wanted more family involved. As we started booking vendors, things escalated. I wanted a small, local church ceremony followed by a casual reception at a community hall. James agreed. My parents suggested a large banquet hall and inviting extended family members I hadn't seen in years. I reminded them that we had our guest list set, and they would still be invited, but no plus ones beyond immediate family, no distant cousins. They weren't happy, but they didn't outright protest at that stage. The tension grew when my younger sister, Anna, 24F, got involved. She's always been very opinionated and somewhat dramatic. She told me that a small wedding would be embarrassing for the family and that people would think our families are stingy or unloving. I told her the wedding isn't about appearances, but about us and the people who matter most. She started campaigning for a bigger event behind my back, contacting distant relatives, sending them messages like, "You really need to come. It's going to be huge." I asked her to stop, explaining we'd already sent official invitations to our planned guest list, but she continued. The breaking point came when my mother sent me a message asking if we could compromise by moving the wedding to a country club she loves. She said she would cover a significant portion of the cost, but wanted to invite nearly 100 people, including all extended family, friends, and coworkers. She framed it as a win-win, saying she would pay and we would get a nicer venue, but it felt like an ultimatum. I told her I appreciated her generosity, but that it's our wedding, and we can't host that many people. James backed me up completely. My father tried to mediate, suggesting a compromise where we could invite a few extra family members without going overboard. I agreed to add maybe 10 more people, but my mother and sister were furious. They accused me of being selfish, controlling, and disrespectful to our family. Anna posted on social media about how my sister is ruining our family's chance to celebrate properly, and several relatives began messaging me with subtle guilt trips about family unity and missing out on a once-in-a-lifetime event. I stuck to my plan, but the family tension only worsened. At one point, my mother refused to attend the rehearsal dinner because she was too upset about the guest list. Anna even hinted that she might not come to the wedding at all unless the guest list expanded. Despite this, James and I remained firm. We didn't want to start our marriage with resentment or with a crowd that wasn't part of our everyday lives. The wedding itself went ahead as planned. It was small, beautiful, and intimate. Most of our close friends and immediate family attended. The ceremony was emotional, the reception was cozy, and we felt surrounded by love. But the aftermath has been challenging. My mother hasn't really spoken to me much since the wedding, except for occasional texts with backhanded compliments. Anna has not apologized for her campaign to sabotage the guest list, and she still posts subtle digs on social media. Other extended family members have expressed disappointment, though most were polite in person. I do feel guilty at times. I love my family and wanted them to be happy, but I also feel like we were reasonable in keeping the wedding small. We compromised slightly by adding a handful of relatives, and we gave everyone invitations well in advance. I didn't think this would create such a rift, but it seems like the size of the wedding has become a symbolic issue of control and respect. James thinks I did the right thing and that I should not feel guilty, but I can't shake the feeling that I might have hurt my family more than I realized. I understand wanting a big celebration, but I also believe that it's fair for the couple to decide the scope of their own wedding. I haven't heard from my mother or Anna about celebrating together after the wedding, and it feels like the conflict might be permanent. So, AITA for refusing to compromise on the size and scope of our wedding, knowing it upset my mother and sister and caused tension with extended family. Character count, 6,462. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of a long-standing family feud. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. I, 28F, come from a fairly large extended family, and there's been tension between certain branches for years. My cousin, Lisa, 27F, is getting married next month, and the wedding is in our hometown, which is about a 4-hour drive from where I live. I had initially been invited, and for a long time, I was planning to attend. But things escalated recently, and now I've decided not to go, which has caused a huge stir in the family, and I genuinely want to know if I'm in the wrong. A little backstory. My mom and Lisa's mom, Susan, have always had a complicated relationship. They used to be close friends, but over the years, jealousy and unresolved disputes have caused a lot of bitterness. There have been a lot of passive-aggressive comments at family gatherings, arguments over trivial things like who gets which seat at Thanksgiving, and constant comparisons between the cousins. My mom and Susan had a huge falling out about 5 years ago, which hasn't been fully mended. Since then, every family event has felt tense and exhausting, with me often stuck in the middle. About a month ago, Lisa's wedding planning started ramping up, and the family WhatsApp group became active. At first, it was normal chatter about dates, invitations, and RSVPs. But soon, my mom noticed that Susan was excluding us from certain planning discussions and openly criticizing minor things about how my mom handled invitations or suggested gift ideas. My mom asked me to step in and try to mediate, but I already knew it would be impossible. Any attempt at compromise would probably be twisted into a criticism anyway. Then came the straw that broke the camel's back. Lisa's fiancé, Mark, suggested that certain family members not attend the rehearsal dinner because of past conflicts, specifically naming my mom and me. I was shocked when I found out because, in the past, I had always tried to be the peacekeeper and avoided confrontations at all costs. Mark and Lisa claimed it wasn't personal, that it was meant to make things easier, but the message was clear. They didn't want us there. My mom was furious and hurt, which is understandable. She called Susan to try to discuss it, but Susan blamed everything on my mom's attitude over the years and insisted it wasn't personal. Meanwhile, I tried to reach out to Lisa, hoping she would tell me that it wasn't true or that she wanted me at the wedding, but I never got a clear response. Instead, I received a vague text saying, "We're trying to make sure the day goes smoothly. Hope you understand." That felt dismissive and like an excuse rather than genuine consideration. After weeks of anxiety, back and forth texts, and multiple family members calling me to explain why I shouldn't take it personally, I realized that attending the wedding would likely cause more stress than joy. I also realized that my presence could actually intensify tension, not just for me, but for my mom and other relatives who support us. I decided to decline the invitation politely but firmly. I wrote Lisa a message saying something along the lines of, "I'm truly happy for you and Mark. I wish you both the best on your wedding day. Unfortunately, due to current family tensions and to avoid unnecessary conflict, I will not be attending. I hope you understand and that your day is beautiful." I sent it and then tried to mentally prepare myself for the fallout. Well, the fallout arrived almost immediately. The family group exploded with messages from relatives who think I'm overreacting. Some said I was being dramatic or holding grudges over nothing. Others claimed I should rise above the past and that weddings are meant to bring families together. My aunt called and said I was disrespecting Lisa and Mark on their special day. Some relatives have even implied that my mom and I are deliberately trying to ruin the wedding. My mom supports my decision, saying that attending would just escalate tensions and that standing your ground is sometimes necessary. However, I feel guilty. I've spent years trying to keep peace and maintain family connections, and I hate feeling like the person who refuses to participate in a major family celebration. I understand that Lisa is excited about her wedding and that she probably doesn't want family drama overshadowing her big day. At the same time, I feel like I'm protecting my own mental health and avoiding a situation that could become ugly very quickly. I haven't spoken to Lisa directly since I declined, except for the polite message. I've considered sending a gift or a card, but I'm worried it might come across as a hollow gesture if I'm not physically attending. Some friends have told me I should go anyway, just grin and bear it, but I'm worried that forcing myself into a tense environment could backfire. So here I am, conflicted and exhausted. I feel like I made the right decision for my own well-being, but part of me wonders if I'm being petty or selfish. Maybe I should put aside the past and attend for the sake of family harmony, even if it's uncomfortable. On the other hand, I don't think I should have to risk emotional distress for the sake of a wedding. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding due to long-standing family tensions, even though some relatives think I'm overreacting or being dramatic. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.